Hi, I'm Beth with American Patchwork and Quilting, and welcome to another tips video for the Blast from the Past Mystery Sampler. This month we're releasing blocks 26, 27, and 28, and they all use strip construction. So I have some tips today for sewing with skinny strips. First, when you're selecting fabrics, consider using smaller scale prints. Since the strips in these blocks are either 1 1/4 inches wide or 1 1/2 inches wide, with a bigger scale print, you're just not going to see a lot of the design, so it can look a little bit off. So something smaller scale or more of an organic random type print, I think works well. Also, I try to avoid a very straight line design, anything with grids, as that can accentuate any inaccuracies if the lines don't line up squarely on your block. I have this filigree bundle by Zen Chic for Moda Fabrics, and I chose these more solid prints that had a little bit less patterning to them, and I avoided these busier prints. Once you've selected your fabrics, you might want to consider using a spray starch. This can give your fabric a little bit more stiffness, it'll stretch a little less, and can give you much more accurate cutting and sewing results. And then when you're cutting, you want to make sure you're cutting accurately. So when you're lining up your ruler and you're going to take your rotary cutter, if you only hold down here, I find that I get a little bobble at the end, and the end of my strip ends up a little skinnier than I need. So if you are cutting, stop halfway, move your hand so that way you have control of your ruler throughout your cut. Another thing that can help is using some ruler grips. So I've added these onto the back of my ruler. So you have these little circles, and these are True Grips. These are from the Grace Company, and this comes in a pack of 15, and they're circles. And this just really gives you a lot more grip on the back of your ruler if you find that your ruler is especially slippery. So once I line these up, and I can see that it's really gripping the fabric because it's moving the entire piece of fabric with it. So that can be really helpful if you're having trouble with accurate cuts. Always test your seam allowance before sewing everything together. So you can do this by sewing 3 1 1/2 inch strips together and then measuring the center strip. It should measure exactly 1 inch. If it doesn't, you'll have to make some adjustments. So we typically find that most people are sewing with a seam that's a little too big, which results in the blocks ending up a little smaller than they should. When you start sewing, I do like to use a 1/4 inch foot with a guide, but still test your seam because I often find you do still need to make adjustments. And then as I'm sewing, I try not to control the fabric too much. I try to let my machine pull that through for me. Just lightly guide. If I'm trying to steer it too much, I feel like it gets much wavier than if I'm just letting the machine do the work. And then try to sew with a nice consistent speed, and you'll get a much straighter seam. Finally, when you are pressing, you want to press and not iron. So you want to push straight down onto your piece and not push too much outward. That can cause a little distortion, a little stretching of the piece. So you just want to press straight down, and then you also want to use a dry heat. Don't use steam because steam can also distort your pieces. Here are the 3 completed blocks. Again, I was using the Filigree collection by Zen Chic for Moda Fabrics. I loved using this line for these 3 blocks. It's got great contrast, which is perfect for these designs. I think this is maybe one of my favorite blocks that we've done so far. I think it's so unique, and it is such a really graphic, fun look. So once you've finished your blocks, please share them with us in our Facebook group or on Instagram with the hashtag APQ Blast from the Past. Happy sewing!